Hey everyone, it's Miles from Expired Film Club here. First of all, thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel. This is my first ever video. Very excited to be making some content for YouTube. If you don't follow me on other social media platforms, I'll leave everything in the description down below. I'm on TikTok and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. And as a special thank you for watching my first ever YouTube video, there's also a discount code down below to my Etsy store where you can go and buy some expired film for yourself. So go and make the most of that. If you'd like to go and shoot some expired film yourself after seeing this video, or if you'd like to support me in any way, that would be amazing. So this first video is going to be a little introduction in how to shoot expired film and how to get the best out of an expired roll of film like this one that I'm holding here. In basic principles, the older a film is, the less sensitive to light it's going to be. And so you need to accommodate for that by increasing some settings on your camera to get the best out of the film. There are a number of different factors that come into play as to how the film was stored, but as a rough rule of thumb, what you want to do is find yourself a roll of film and find out when that film expired. So particularly this roll of Super Snaps colour print film expired in December of 2002. Using that information, the general rule of how to expose expired film is to add a stop of exposure per decade since it expired. So this expired in 2002, plus 10 years will be 2012, plus another 10 years will be 2022, and I always tend to err on the side of overexposure rather than underexposure. The easiest way to do that on manual film cameras like this SLR that I'm using is to set the ISO on the camera to 2 stops lower than that of the film at box speed. Box speed is literally as it's described, it's the speed of the film on the box, and this one you can see is 200. That means 200 ISO, which is the common measurement of film sensitivity, and each stop of ISO will be half less than the previous one. So this is 200 ISO film, so half of 200 is 100, half of 100 is 50. I shoot this at 50 ISO, which makes that 2 stops below what the film's box speed is. By changing the ISO on the camera to lower than the box speed, you're essentially tricking the camera into thinking that the film is less sensitive than it was when it came out, which means that the camera settings that it'll recommend you will automatically expose the film for that speed ISO. So we're assuming that this can be shot at 50 ISO, which is 2 stops lower than it was when it was first made, which means that the camera will think that the film is rated at 50 ISO, and the settings that it recommends to you will be corresponding to that number. If you're using an automatic camera, or a camera that uses DX coding, which means it automatically reads the film, what you can do is you can add the stops of exposure yourself with the settings, or in development you can ask the lab that you send it to be pushed by 2 stops in development, which essentially means the film is developed for a longer time and it just brings out that extra bit of exposure as well. So with all that in mind, I'm going to load this film into my 35mm camera. I'm going to go around and shoot some photos in the beautiful autumnal scenery where I am here at the moment in the English countryside, and we'll see the results in a minute. So one of the things I like to keep in mind when I'm shooting expired film is that it's better to slightly overexpose than it is to slightly underexposed film, which is interesting because it's the exact opposite with digital photos. But with film, overexposure actually looks better in the end than if you've underexposed an image. And particularly with expired film, where it's going to be less sensitive to light, I always err on the side of adding a little bit more exposure if I think the shot could benefit from it. So for example, right now I'm stood in front of this lovely landscape scene. I've got this lake behind me, very dark water, very bright sky, and so if I was shooting this, I would meter for the shadows of the shot, which would be the dark water or the ground in front of me. You can use the internal light meter on your camera if you have one, or if you've got an external light meter, or even you can use an app, which I do sometimes on my phone. But point it at the shadows and see what the settings are being recommended to you, and set those as your exposure settings for the shot, and it'll end up hopefully with your shot being properly exposed. So So I've just finished that roll of Super Snaps film now, and I've taken it out of my camera and reloaded it with some much higher ISO film as the light is just starting to die down a bit. We're getting towards sunset here in the UK, and I've decided to use a roll of expired slide film. This is expired Ektachrome Panther 1600. So originally it was 1600 ISO, which is extremely high for any sort of film. You don't see it very often in the film world, and I thought it was a good idea to get that higher ISO sensitivity as the sun is starting to go down. The one thing to bear in mind with expired film is that the higher the ISO sensitivity was when it was first released and was a fresh roll of film, the quicker it will expire and degrade, particularly with color negative film. So for example, if you were shooting a roll of 200 ISO film and a roll of 800 ISO film that expired in the same year, it would definitely be worth adding an extra couple of stops to the 800 ISO film, just because the higher light sensitivity means it degrades that much quicker. This roll is actually a roll of slide film, which is slightly different to color negative film in that it expires slower. So what I'm doing with this is 1600 ISO to start with, so I'm going to meter it at 800 ISO and I hope it's okay. The thing with slide film over color negative as well is that the exposure latitude isn't as good, so you have to be much more precise with your exposure settings. So I'm hoping it's going to turn out okay, but if it does, slide film just has that knack of looking absolutely beautiful. I've never shot a roll of this Kodak 1600 Ektachrome before, so we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to go take some more photos. Well, so there we go. That was me shooting some expired film in this glorious National Trust property here in the English countryside. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it and that you've learned something. Do leave a like if you have enjoyed it, and if you're new and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. I'm going to be putting loads more expired film and film photography content on this channel going forward. Really looking forward to doing all that. It's going to be tutorials and some little online classes that I'm going to post, as well as me sort of doing some behind the scenes shoots and showing you what I do when I shoot film. So please do subscribe if you'd like to, and to say a big thanks to everybody tuning into my first YouTube video. There is a discount code down below to get yourself a cheeky discount off my Etsy store, where I sell expired film lucky dip boxes. You can choose your own expired film, and I also sell film cameras and accessories down there as well, so please do check it out. If there's anything particular that you'd like to see on the channel in the future around film photography and everything, do let me know in the comments. If you've got anything in particular that you'd like to know or learn about, then please do let me know. Check out my other socials down below, and I'll see you for another video on the channel very, very soon indeed. Thanks so much for watching.